Debt, fear, relationships, the children, your health, work. When you want to give up and you need courage to continue, take heart and stay tuned as RJ Jackson writes her signature message of hope on your heart. You don't have to live where you're dying, and you don't have to die where you're living. Like every show of Conversations on Courage, you'll be informed, inspired, and encouraged to find the courage you need to succeed at home, work, and in your business. Get your pen and paper. You'll want to take notes. And now, your host, RJ Jackson, the Courage Giver.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the table. Welcome to another epic Conversation on Courage podcast. I am your host, RJ Jackson, the Courage Giver, and I'm honored to be here today. This is a show. It's a show for women who dare to live bold, authentic, and courageous lives. This is a show for women who dare to be all that they were created to be. This is a show for women who dare to live unapologetically. This is the show where you can find the courage you need in order to succeed. This is the show for you. I like to look at this as episode number 1. Although it's not our first episode, it is the one you've been waiting for. It's the one that you will appreciate and the one you will be glad you stuck around to hear. It's the one that will help you level up in your business and in your personal life. This is the one you'll want to listen to over and over again. Matter of fact, it's the one you'll want to share with your sister friend. So why don't you go ahead, take a moment and do that right now. Simply hit the share button. And while you're touching those buttons, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment. And please leave a review. On today's show, as on every show, we promise to give you information that will cause transformation in your situation. We promise. Another episode of Conversation on Courage. What are we going to do? Not only are we going to give you the information for transformation, we're going to answer your questions. The ones that you had the courage to ask on our online Facebook group. Girl, I'm working on it too. Now, if you're not a part of our group, I invite you to head on over and join us on Facebook on Girl, I'm working on it too. Head on over and connect with women who are willing to get underneath you, walk beside you, and remind you of your greatness. What else are we going to do? We're going to share insight and inspiration for your current situation. I absolutely love connecting people to people and sharing resources that will help others live out their greatness. Today I have the pleasure of bringing to the table and chatting with Joe Hawbaker. He is a real-life leader, husband, father, and award-winning high school teacher and soccer coach in Alabama. He's a speaker and a coach. If you're looking for help with blended family life and leadership principles, well, you've come to the right place. Join us in the conversation here at the table as we welcome Joe Hawbaker. But first, here's 60 seconds of something amazing with leadership expert John Bentley.
Today's quote comes from Mark Twain. Keep away from people who try to belittle your ambitions. Small people always do that, but the really great make you feel that you too can become great. So when you're just starting out, some people may tell you that your dreams are out of reach. Instead of listening to people who don't see your vision or don't believe you can achieve it, find people with a vision of their own. When you spend time with those who have goals for the future, you too can learn how to become all you dream to be. So here's 3 tips to put this quote into action. Stay away from people with no vision. Share your vision with those who have their own. and reach for your goals despite what small-minded people say. I'm John Bentley. Thanks for listening. And you can connect with me at Power2Transform. That's power, the number 2, transform.com, where you can find more motivational tips for living a positive life you love.
Stay tuned. Coming up next, RJ brings her special guest to the table for more authentic and down-to-earth conversations on courage.
Joe, welcome to the table.
Thank you very much. I'm really, really excited about our conversation today and looking forward to chatting with you and also to hopefully interacting a lot with your listeners afterward and being able to help out some of them.
Awesome. Why don't we just go ahead and dive in deep, because I know people have been waiting for this moment, because for so many people, family is important to them, and they're not sure how to continue to build those healthy relationships within their family structure, especially nowadays with the structure changing so much and being different in so many ways. And different doesn't necessarily mean bad. It just means different. So tell us your story. Like, how did you get to where you are? And I know one of the things that you do, and I salute you for it, is you work with blended families. So tell us your story, how you ended up working with blended families.
So my story begins in middle school when my parents divorced. And about a year after that, my mom started dating a man that I still refer to as my stepdad, even though they never married. And so I got to see blended family life firsthand as a teenager. We would have Thanksgivings together and birthdays together, and it was, my mom would be there, my dad would be there, my stepdad would be there, my stepdad's dad would be there, all the kids would be there together. And that was just normal for us. There was never any animosity between my father and my stepdad. There was never any, none of my three parents ever badmouthed any of the other ones. There was never any negativity like that. And so for me, that just became normal, and I'm very thankful for that. I got married for the first time when I was 19. Halfway through college, my first wife and I had 2 kids together. We were married for 8.5 years, and then we separated and divorced. And now I've been remarried for about almost 5 years now. And my first wife is also remarried. She and her new husband have not new anymore, they've been remarried for about 5 years. They have a 3-year-old son. And we live about 2 miles apart, and we try to raise our 2 daughters together between the two households and the 4 parents. And I made a lot of mistakes in my first marriage. Looking back, there were a lot of criticisms from my first wife that are very valid that I wouldn't have said they were valid when we were married. But looking back, hindsight's 20/20. I've learned a lot more about humility since then. And as a result of those things, I want to help people that are in blended family situations try to live life more harmoniously within however many parents there are, however many kids there are, whatever the situation is. I want to help them improve their relationships among all of them, between the parents and the step-parents, between the parents and the kids, the step-kids, whatever it may be. My goal is to try to help people live life better, live family life better, whether it's blended families or traditional families. The principles I teach work well for both. I learned them the hard way. That is, by doing them poorly in my first marriage and then trying to do them better now in my second marriage. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today.
You actually have experience firsthand as a teenager with blended family. You didn't wait until you got remarried to say, oh, I know what I'm talking about, but you took your past and you understood it was a part of your purpose in life, and you share your story, you share your principles with other people to help them understand the value of family, even in blended families. So let me ask you, when you were growing up, I know you said there was no animosity, but was that different for you? Were your friends living in that kind of environment? And how did you like work with that or deal with that?
It's really funny you asked that, actually. I remember being in school, and before divorce was nearly so common, I can remember being in grade school and having one classmate out of about 30 whose parents were divorced. And so it used to be very, very different. By the time I graduated high school, I was in class with maybe 3 or 4 kids whose parents were divorced besides myself. And so it wasn't nearly so common, but it was something that I had seen both from the inside and from some of my other friends. And I'm very thankful to have seen it done so well. And it was different for me. It was very hard for me to understand how my dad could be so okay with this kind of thing. And I asked him about it one day because I'm a teenager, and your audience can't see me, so they can't tell that I'm very short. I'm about 5'3", and a Napoleon complex is a very real thing. And as a very sort of insecure teenager, I remember seeing my dad be very kind and respectful toward my stepdad, and thinking to myself, yeah, I'm never going to be that nice to anybody who dates my ex-girlfriend. And I remember asking him about it one day, and I said, Dad, doesn't it bother you to see some other guy with Mom? And he looked at me very seriously, and he said, son, after your mom and I divorced, it was no longer my business who she spends her time with. As long as he is good to you, I don't have any problem with him, nor do I have any right to have any problem with him. And that made a tremendous impression upon me as a teenager, because I thought that may be the most mature thing I had ever heard. And it makes total sense, because that's exactly right. That's how we are supposed to be. We're supposed to love everybody anyway. But, that's not what we actually see when we look at culture. And for my dad to say that so openly and so honestly, and that made an impact on me that has never gone away. And, the way that God has set up marriage, it's not supposed to end in divorce. I know that. I'm a Christian. I've been one my whole life. So is my first wife. And things did end that way. And so then the question becomes, well, now what do you do? And the answer is you make the best out of it, and you try to be loving toward each other even when it gets really hard after a divorce. And thankfully, I give a lot of credit to my wife and to my ex-wife's husband, that is my girl's stepdad, because they also understand we need to treat each other well, both for our own relationships, but especially for the sake of our kids. And so I'm really glad to have seen that done well by both my parents and my stepdad. That's something that I could not put a price value on, and it set a very high standard for me to try to live up to. And I'm just really glad to have seen that example. It definitely was different, but I'm very glad to have seen it done well.
Not only did you see it done well, you imitated it as well. You took what you saw and you modeled what was modeled for you, and now you're modeling it for your family. Wow, that was powerful what your dad said. That was totally powerful. Maybe you should put that in a quote or a plaque or something and share it with men and women around the world. Woo, that was powerful. Now, you said something else I want to just address. You said, okay, so I'm 5'3", I'm short, but I just want you to know, okay, maybe you're short, but you're a short man who people look up to. And it's better to be a short man and people look up to you than be a tall man and people look down at you. And they look up to you, Joe, because you had something modeled for you of importance and family and honoring and relationships, and you took that and you said, this is how I choose to live my life, based on not only what the Bible says about honoring, but based on what was modeled in such a positive way. So, yeah, you might be short, but at the end of the day, brother, you are tall. You are standing tall.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, it is. Like you said, I had a very powerful model in both my parents and my stepdad, and I am really grateful for that. And I'm thankful to have the opportunity to try to live this blended family life well in front of my kids. I pray that they never need it firsthand. I pray that when they grow up and if they get married, that they will stay married to their spouse forever. But I also know that statistically, even if they do that, they will have close friends and other loved ones who will go through divorce or who will go through something really hard like that and end up in some sort of blended family. And hopefully they will have seen it done well also, and they can reach out to somebody and they can say, hey, listen, let me help you. Let me see how I can maybe encourage you, and that sort of thing. So, again, I'm really thankful for the example that I have. I hope that they never need it for themselves, but I do hope that they will be able to live it out for other people also.
That's awesome.
how would you define blended families, and then how do you help blended families?
So I would say that a blended family is any family that falls outside of the traditional, two parents and children, or two biological parents and children kind of model. And so that might mean could be someone who is a widow or a widower who has remarried and that person had kids, or the widow or widower had kids. It could be divorced couples who then marry other people, like my first wife and I. It could be someone who had a child out of wedlock and then got married. And so, again, it's any sort of combination of biological and non-biological parents, or biological parents with different kids coming into the family. So there's a million different varieties of it. And they all come with their own unique challenges. And so to address the second part of your question, one of the first things I like to do is to ask for details about what their specific blended family life situation is like, because the principles remain the same regardless of the family unit, traditional, blended, whatever it may be. But the specifics of how you implement those principles are going to depend on the situation. It depends on the number of kids and the age of the kids. Depends on the combination of the kids. That is, are they both from one marriage? Are they from a combination of marriages? Or do you have some from the first marriage and then kids from, the marriage that you're in now? Did both parents bring kids in from outside to the marriage? And I've got friends who are in all of those different situations. And so I learned from them some of the specific unique challenges. For example, I've got a friend who is he's divorced and remarried, and he has a son from his first marriage. The lady that he married has 3 daughters from 2 previous relationships. And so that means he is part of a situation where he is the biological dad for one kid, and he's the stepdad for 3 others, and there's 2 other dads whose opinions and schedules and just life also have to be taken into account. And so the way that I would help him is going to be different than someone who's in a situation like mine where there's only 4 parents in 2 houses. Because his situation, there's, 6 parents and 3 houses kind of a thing. And so it's very unique. And again, I fall back on principles that apply across the board, but it's really interesting to look at the different situations. And I would give 2 key principles that apply to every family, but especially blended families. The first one is approach every situation with humility and respect, because you never know what someone else is dealing with or has dealt with, and every human being is worthy of respect. So if we can treat each other well, that's a great starting point. The second major principle is, again, in blended families or traditional blended families, it's going to take time. It's going to take time for things to work out the way that they should. So you've got to keep a long-term perspective. So again, approach every situation with respect and humility, and keep a long-term perspective. And when you do those things, especially in regards to the kids, things will get better over the long term. It's going to hurt for a while. It's going to be complicated, but it will get better.
It will get better. As you talk about these things take time, we have to realize, really, it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. So I have a question for you. I heard you say stepdad. And so sometimes I hear people saying stepdad, and sometimes I hear people saying my dad, when it really is the stepdad. When does that transition take place? Like, how do you know to say my dad, my stepdad? How do you know to say my stepkids, my kids? Is there anything you can share with us?
Sure. So that's actually a really great question, because it is typically an emotional pain point for a lot of people, whether that's parents or step-parents, kids or step-kids. That's one that can become very sensitive very quickly. So first, let me tell you how we deal with it in our situation, and then from there we can kind of extrapolate outward. So in our family, what we decided on is, because there are 2 biological kids from the first marriage, the only people that they address as mom or dad are their biological parents. So I am always dad. Their mother is always mom. And we believe that's best, because that way there's no confusion. Because when we both remarried, our younger daughter was only like 6 or 7 years old. And so on one hand, it made things simpler, because that way there was no confusion. If we say dad, then we're talking about me. If we say Kyle, which is their stepdad, then we're talking about Kyle. And that was his choice to be called Kyle instead of, some other term. But my first wife and I, when we divorced, we both agreed that the term mom or the term dad, those are reserved for us. Now, that means they call my wife Mel. Her name is Mary Ellen, and they call her Mel for short. They don't call her stepmom. They don't call her stepmommy. They just call her Mel. And they call their stepdad Kyle. That's what he wanted to go by for them. And so that means we have to be careful that that term doesn't become disrespectful because it's a little bit familiar. Obviously, most of us don't normally call our parents by their first name. But we believe it was best both in terms of simplicity, but also for showing respect to the biological parents. Having said that, we also have to make sure that our kids continue to show the same level of respect to their step-parents that they do to their biological parents. We don't ever want to hear the phrase, "You're not my mom, you're not my dad." That's unacceptable in our world because that is whether the kids mean it that way or not, that's a very disrespectful thing to say to a person who works to put food on your table or pay the rent for your house you live in or the mortgage, pay your school tuition or whatever it may be. Like, if that person busts their tail, you don't get to disrespect them that way. I don't care if they birthed you or not, you don't talk to someone that way. So that's very important. Now, in terms of the kids, we don't ever say stepkids. So my wife doesn't call them her stepdaughters unless someone specifically asks. She just says, yes, these are our daughters. And my kid's stepdad, he says the same thing. He says, I love those girls like they're my kids. I just call them my daughters. I said, that's great. Because that way the kids know they are loved. And also that way there's not a separation because in their mom's house, my two girls also have a little brother. Well, they don't refer to him as their half-brother. He's just their brother, period. Because that way there's not a separation. There's not a class system. There's not a hierarchy like, well, we're sisters and you're just our half-brother. No, you are siblings. That is your little brother. You love him. He's your brother, period. And they've been really wonderful about that. So that's the way that we've chosen to do things. I know that other families have chosen other things. I know that certain families have, he's my daddy and this other person is my dad, or I call this person dad, I call this person papa, or whatever it may be, kind of like some families do with grandparents so you don't get them confused. What I would say is for blended families, you need to try to come to an understanding to where everyone is happy with whatever their title is. And that way everyone knows that they are loved, everyone knows they are valued, everyone knows they are respected. And that may look a little different for each family. But as long as all of the adults are happy with it, and as long as all of the kids are comfortable with it, then that's a great system.
Thank you so much for sharing it and giving us that perception that can help us live in healthy, whole families and produce children that will grow up to be healthy adults. What's the number one, in your opinion, or from your research or working with blended families, what's the top conflict that occurs in blended families, and what do you suggest is the key for solving it?
That's a great question. So this is going to sound a little philosophical, but I would argue the single greatest conflict in blended families is pride. And what I mean by that is you rarely meet people who have divorced or split up after having kids together who aren't hurt by the breakup, by the divorce. And so a lot of times the conflict comes because of disrespect or a perceived lack of respect, whether it's real or not. And so people are sinful, people are people, and when I feel like I've been hurt, my natural reaction is to lash back out and hurt someone else. And then their natural reaction is to lash back out and hurt me. And sometimes we do that in ways that we don't necessarily intend. Sometimes it's a tone of voice, but more often, and what's much more damaging, is when we start to use our kids as ways to hurt the other person. And sometimes that may be something subtle, like just a snide comment about the other parent here or a disrespectful comment about them there. And again, I would argue that those lead to big problems down the road. And so the solution for the problem of pride, the solution for it is humility. And that is a type of self-forgetfulness or a concern for other people above yourself. And that's ridiculously hard, especially if you're hurting because of the other person. So like when my wife and I divorced, the last thing on earth I wanted to do was to be good to her, especially in front of my kids. But the truth of the matter is Abraham Lincoln was right when he said the best thing a father can do for his children is to love their mother. Well, that means even if my ex-wife and I aren't together anymore, I need to treat her well all the time. not just in front of my kids. I need to treat her well so that they can see what it looks like for a man to treat a woman respectfully, because I want them to have that when they grow up. And so now that I'm remarried, I try to treat my wife that way, and I try to treat my ex-wife that way. And that's very easy to say. It's very hard to do. So in a more practical, less philosophical level, what I would say is the biggest problem people have is that we act out of our hurt, and the way to get past that is to try to take our own egos out of the equation and ask the question, what is best for our children? Not what's best for me, not what do I want, what is best for our children, even if it's inconvenient for me. Because if we can start asking that question, even if we don't do it perfectly, at least now that's the thing we have in common. We can ask the question, what's best for our kids? And we may not even agree on that, but at least we're both asking the same question, and that's a great starting point. And so that's what I would encourage people to do is to on your own time, not in front of the kids, not using the kids, try to work through your pain so that you can act out of love for your children and love for the other person, even if you don't feel it emotionally. And that way you can do what's best for the kids long term.
I told you this was going to be good. Oh, my goodness. You know, there are women listening right now who have totally given up and threw in the towel because they don't believe that there are good men who exist. I want you to know, ladies, that's a myth. There are good, godly men who not only exist, but that God is preparing for you who are single, who will love you and love your children the way that Christ loved the church. What we as women have to be willing to do is wait on God. Wait on Him. Joe, I could probably ask you about 1,500 more questions because this is really good stuff. But time just won't allow me to do that. I do have a couple of more questions for you. And the first one being, how can people connect with you to hear more, to receive more, to learn more about having success strategies, healthy relationships in a blended family environment?
Well, thank you very much for asking that, and I would love to hear from any of your listeners that have any questions for me. The easiest way to get in touch with me is to go to my website. It's reallifeleading.com, and there's a Contact Joel page on there. And that's the easiest way. It'll send me an email. You can also connect with me on Twitter. My handle is @reallifeleading. You can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook under my name, Joel W. Hawbaker. And those are the easiest ways to get in touch with me. I would love to hear from your listeners. I'd love to help them any way I can. And, again, I appreciate you asking me.
Absolutely. And if you missed that, you can always find it on our website at conversationsoncourage.com. That's conversationsoncourage.com. Joe, what words of courage and encouragement would you like to leave so that those who are listening can take a risk with confidence and live life on the other side of fear in a blended family?
Well, I would say a couple things. One, I would say it does get better. It can get better even when you feel like it's pretty hopeless. I can remember about a decade ago being divorced and having just gone through bankruptcy and foreclosure and losing custody of my kids. And it's a pretty dark place to be. And today I'm remarried. I have jobs that I love. I love my spouse, and I get to see my kids all the time. Our custody situation has changed. However bad your situation is, J.R.R. Tolkien said that despair is only for those who see the end beyond all doubt. And we do not. We don't see the end beyond all doubt. And so there's no reason to despair. In fact, the Bible gives us lots of reasons to hope. So I would tell your listeners, anyone who's hurting, anyone who's in a really dark, difficult place, it will get better. Trust in the Lord. Cast your fears and your anxiety on Him. And also, don't be too proud to ask for help. If you need somebody to pray for you, if you need somebody to help you out in a difficult situation, then reach out to someone. There are people who are willing to help you, and so don't try to do it on your own. So those are the words of encouragement I would give. Just again, it will get better. It can get better, and don't be too proud to ask for help, because there are people who want to love you and who want to encourage you.
Joel, thanks so much for being an example of the love of the Father and for being our guest today here on Conversations on Courage. It's been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Thank you, RJ. I've had a blast. I've been looking forward to this one for a while, and I'm really glad to get to talk with you today. And I hope to hear from a lot of your listeners. I hope they've been encouraged and inspired. And thank you for the work that you do, encouraging people. I love the idea of taking a risk with confidence. It just makes me happy.
You're listening to Conversations on Courage with your host, RJ Jackson, the Courage Giver. Quick, call your friends and invite them to listen in.
You know, Joel talked about pride being one of the biggest mistakes that people make in blended families. It's one of the biggest conflicts, and humility being the solution. St. Augustine said it was pride that changed angels into devils, and it was humility that made men of angels. Pride comes before the fall, and God says family is important. If you're looking for support, encouragement, inspiration, and practical principles that will help you have healthy relationships in your family or blended family, I invite you to contact Joel Hawbaker today. Don't wait, for tomorrow might be too late. Thanks again, Joel, for being our very special guest here on Conversations on Courage. And thank you, my friend, for being our guest too. You are the most important part of the Conversation on Courage podcast. This week in our Author's Corner, we are very excited to have with us Dwayne Castle. Now, Dwayne has had a bit of a wild career trajectory. He is the founder of Relationally Driven, a coaching and training service which provides solutions to people and businesses who want to improve their effectiveness and profitability of their personal and professional relationships. He has served our country. He was a police officer. He's traveled as a salesman. And today he's here to talk to you about his book, The Relationally Driven Approach. Would you join me in welcoming Dwayne Castle to the table? First, let me say thank you for serving our country, and we're honored to have you here today.
Thank you so much, RJ, for having me on. I've been looking forward to this.
Well, it's a pleasure, and I am confident that our audience will be blessed and will walk away encouraged to remember that they matter. So let's just literally jump right into the conversation, and let's hear your story. I know for sure that where you are is not where you've always been, and that there's a journey that you've been taking. So what's your story? Tell us how you got to where you are, that you're able to help people move beyond unhealthy views of themselves.
That's a great question. So here's an interesting tidbit, RJ. Saturday is my 50th birthday. And when I was in my mid-20s, I would get depressed every year on my birthday. I had no idea why. I didn't even know that I had been depressed. It was pointed out to me, and so I thought about it, and I looked back and realized that over the course of my life, I had made so many mistakes. I became a teen dad. I got married while I was still in high school. I was doing drugs when I was 8 years old. I was drinking fairly regularly. And
everything that I touched seemed to turn to garbage. And so one day I was kind of depressed at my birthday. And for me, it was an encounter with God. For you, it could be something else. But for me, I heard this voice to tell me that my birthday was to be a celebration of that moment in eternity when he said that his creation would not be complete without me in it. That changed everything for me, RJ.
We celebrate you, brother. Happy birthday to you. So that changed for you. So let's talk about where you are now. Like, how do you feel about life right now?
Right now, my 40s were the best 10 years of my life. And I'm expecting the 50s to be even better. And the reason that is that I've had that different perspective on the second half of my life than I did on the first half. A lot of times on the first half of my life, I believed the lies that were spoken over me. I believed that I was a failure. And if you're believing that you're a failure, it doesn't take long to find evidence that you are a failure. And so that's how I lived my life. But once I got this understanding that I had value, that I had purpose, and that I knew so many other people who were having the same struggles, I realized I was onto something.
You know, you talked about everything you touch turned to garbage. When did that shift for you after God spoke to your heart?
When I got a healthy view of who I am, and that understanding that my value doesn't come from other people, that my value and my worth doesn't come from how much money is in my bank account or what my job title or position is. So often we spend so much time building up the wrong things and living up to or down to the wrong expectations. And so what happens if those things aren't there anymore? What if you get your value from money or a job title and then you lose your money and your position? Does that mean you're not worth anything anymore? And so because I got this new perspective that I actually had value just because I exist, because God put me on this planet, that's all I needed to know. Now, what my purpose looks like and what your purpose looks like, we spend the rest of our lives trying to figure that out. But if I know that I have value, I can look at you and see that you also have value, and now I've made it my mission to help add to yours. Everybody wins.
And that's what people want to do. They want to win. So, Dwayne, you talk about this perception you had of yourself that you had to realize that wasn't you. Where did that perception come from?
It came from the fact that so many things that I had done were just wrong. I was never the popular kid. I was never the center of attention and those kinds of things. And so when I took all of the history of growing up, like I said, drug use, drinking, poor relationships in school, and I ended up becoming a teen dad. And I ended up ultimately becoming a police officer, taking all of my questionable morals and ethics, and I was a liar. I was not a good person. And so as the truth often does, and I would say always does, your truth will find you out. And I lost my job, and that's where I had my identity, was in that job as a police officer. And so that was taken away from me. And I had been suicidal for the 3 years that I was working at that police department because I just did not feel as if I was accepted. I didn't feel as if I could do it. I felt like a fraud. And the day that I lost my job, I was actually trying to figure out how I was going to take my own life. And when I was figuring out how I would do that, again, this voice, Dwayne, if you do things my way, it'll be okay. And so from that moment on, I've just pursued my relationship with God, and that has informed everything that I do from this point, because I was doing everything selfishly. I was doing everything trying to please other people or just please myself, as opposed to just loving people and serving. Once I got a new mindset, it changed everything.
And it is about mindset. And thank you for being so courageous and so transparent with us, for sharing your stories, so that as we listen, we can examine ourselves to see what kind of unhealthy view we have about ourselves. So what's the top lesson you would say that you actually learned from your story, from your experience, and how has it shaped your life?
Well, it's interesting. After I left the career that I had always wanted since I was a boy, all I ever wanted to do was be a police officer. And I ended up getting a job in customer service, and I was supervising employees. And I was put into a position where I would recognize the challenges that I was having with my employees. I recognized that people didn't act the way I thought they should act. And I also have been an ordained minister for several years. And so that put me in a unique position where I could actually have a lot of one-on-one conversations with people. And I found out that there were so many other people with similar circumstances. The names and places and dates and all of that have changed, but the overall circumstances were the same. And so I found that as I was able to talk to those individuals and listen to what they had to say, listen to their heartaches and their heartbreaks and the hardships of life, I recognized the common theme that people all across the board have let the wrong things define them. And so it's been my mission to mentor individuals and work with individuals so that they would see that they have value as well. And when people get it, their lives change because they're not living for the wrong things any longer. They're happy knowing that they were put here for a purpose, and now there's a joy in discovering what that purpose is.
So not only do you mentor, but you are also an author. You have a book that helps us move beyond those unhealthy views of ourselves, the relationally driven approach. What inspired you to write, and what's your main message in the book?
Well, what inspired me to write that was all of those conversations that I had had up to that point. I think we all get to a spot where we recognize that the things that we're doing aren't working. But for some reason, as human beings, we're stubborn. And we will continue to pound our head against the wall, expecting the different results, but not getting different results. And so I was able to take all of those conversations that I've had over the years and bring it out to 3 principles for living life. That is the fact that you matter. People matter. That's principle 1. Principle 2, you're people, so you matter. And then the one that was my big downfall, authenticity matters. I would change who I was depending on who I was with. I would wear a mask, and so many other people have done that too. And when we realize that who you are is good enough, it changes the dynamic of all of the relationships that you have, whether it's your employer, your coworkers, your spouse, your children. It all changes.
In your book, there's a chapter that talks about surrounding treasures, and it inspires us and encourages us to think of the impact that we could have on literally a corner in the world, like, or in our home or our job, if we treated every single person from the standpoint that they matter, what impact we could make. Like, that is so true and so powerful, but yet we don't even speak to each other. So how do we get to that point where we can treat people as if they matter?
Well, first off, we can never treat other people as if they have value if we don't believe that we have value ourselves. What happens is, if I don't really believe that I have created value, then I spend all of my time either living down to that expectation or overcompensating, and kind of like a bull in a china shop. I'll run over people so that they don't hurt me. I will get you before you get me, that kind of a mindset. And so I have to truly get comfortable in my own skin. I have to truly recognize that that value that was placed in me at my birth. Once I can get that, then I'm not operating in fear. Once I can do that, I'm not operating in competition or to impress you or anything along those lines. I'm just learning to love the person in front of me. This world, you know as well as I do, is so divided. We're right or left. We're black or white. We're gay or straight. We're all of these things. And really, we're all human beings. And we can't see the humanity in one another unless we make ourselves stop and look the other person in the eye and see them as a human being. It changes everything.
It changes everything. And we can't see in others, as you said, what we don't see in ourselves. I just want to talk about another part of your book where you talk about sticks and stones. And I love that because as a baby boomer, I grew up with that statement, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, they will never hurt me. And it's a lie straight from the pit of hell. So tell us your thoughts about sticks and stones and how that affected you growing up and through your adulthood.
I found that my parents loved me. My parents, they've done the best job they knew how to do. You can't give what you don't have, right? We put expectations on people that we don't even put on ourselves. And so I share in the book this story about coming home after having ran a mile after several attempts. Every time that I tried it, I would fail. I'd try again, I'd fail. One day, I finally had completed that mile, and I ran home, and I told my mother that I did this mile, and she was very proud of me. Good job, son. And then there was a man in the home who told me that I didn't run a mile because he drove by and saw me that I was huffing and puffing and that I was walking and that I was hyperventilating as I was walking. And it didn't matter that I completed that mile in the time frame, that it didn't count as a success even though I finished it in the allotted time. And so that came into my mind that I had given it my best effort multiple times, and I finally succeeded, and even in my success, I was a failure. And so I took that mindset with me to so many other things. I planned for my failure. I planned for moving on. I know this isn't going to work out. What's my plan B? But that's the power of sticks and stones. It's not usually yes, there's certainly people who are told you're stupid, you're ugly. And if you hear that over and over and over again, why wouldn't a child believe that and grow up believing that? And they'll either live down to that expectation or, they, like I said, they will overcompensate to prove you wrong, and you spend the rest of your life trying to prove people wrong. That's the power of sticks and stones.
They say a strong woman is one who has bricks thrown at her, and she can build a foundation. And we want to encourage you, if you're listening, no matter who you are, to take those sticks, those stones, those bricks, and build a strong foundation, because there's greatness inside of you, and the world is waiting for your greatness to show up. Hey, Dwayne, how can we get our hands on a copy of your book?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. My website is at relationallydriven.com, relationallydriven.com. And you can go, I'll have a book. There's a book link there. You can also go on to Amazon and get that book. But if you go through my website and use a code at checkout, I put a code in there, COURAGE, and I've given your listeners a discount for purchasing that book after hearing this podcast.
That's totally awesome. So if you missed that information, you can always find it on our website, conversationsoncourage.com. That's conversationsoncourage.com. You want to get your hands on a copy of this book so that you can be reminded that there's greatness inside of you, and it's time for you to show up. Words of encouragement that you'd love to leave with our audience before you go, Dwayne?
Yes. The word that has been coming to my mind often is the word effective. And I want to encourage the listeners to ask themselves, what is it do they want out of their life? And is the thing that they're doing getting them there? If you find yourself in the same patterns over and over again, then I want to encourage you to change the way that you're looking at the situation, change the way that you are looking at yourself and the people that are around you. I have so many women in my life who have proven the strength of character in women, who have defied the odds and the logic and all of those things. And so I just want to echo what you were saying. Your listeners have so much good stuff in them. And it's just a matter of enjoying the ride while you figure out what those things are. But if you start from the base that you have value, then it'll make it so much easier for them to figure out what those specific things are that are unique to them.
Not only did you give us words of encouragement, but you gave us actionable steps that we can take right away. And that is, start from the base of knowing and believing that you are valuable. And now it's time to take action, because it's true, you are valuable. Let that be your base so that your foundation can be strong. When the winds come, you won't get blown away, but that you'll remember the conversation that you heard from Dwayne today, reminding you that you have value. Dwayne, thanks for not only encouraging us by being authentic and sharing your story and reminding us that we have value, but thank you so much for spending this time with us here at the table on Conversations on Courage. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure being here.
Well, what can we say? Another day here at the table on Conversations on Courage, where we absolutely, positively kept our promise to you. Not only did we provide you with inspiration that causes transformation, but we provided you with success strategies for healthy and whole relationships. Hopefully you took some notes, but if not, no worries. Just catch us on the replay. We'll be here just for you. I'm RJ Jackson, the Courage Giver. It's been a pleasure to be your host and introduce you to our featured guest today, leadership expert John Bentley. Be sure to check him out at powertotransform.com. In the meantime and in between time, yeah, I'm not going to quit my day job. Don't you worry. Because my day job is inspiring you to take a risk with confidence so that you, my friend, can live life on the other side of fear. While it is my pleasure to inspire you and encourage your heart here on Conversations on Courage, it is my passion and my purpose to connect with you intentionally as an international speaker to remind you that there's greatness inside of you. If you're looking for an authentic, down-to-earth speaker but shares her stories for God's glory, keep up your courage and stay blessed. Keep up your courage, take a risk with confidence, and stay blessed indeed. We'll be here again next week, same time, same purpose. And you, my friend, well, you're the reason why. So we hope to see you then. In the meantime, don't forget to follow me online. You can catch me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Anchor, and all social media platforms at The Courage Giver. You can visit my website at thecouragegiver.com. That's thecouragegiver.com. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us for Conversations on Courage. Now that you've been inspired, informed, and encouraged, it's time for you to take action. So head on over to thecouragegiver.com. That's thecouragegiver.com and connect with RJ for a personal conversation on courage. She's waiting to help you take the risk you need to succeed.